Yes, I can help with Joshua Selma N sermons. Apostle Joshua Selma N is a Nigerian Christian minister, teacher and founder of Monomania's Eternity Network International. His sermons are widely known for their depth. Beloved, every new week is not just a cycle of days, it is a spiritual container. Inside it are opportunities, instructions, battles, helpers, and divine appointments. The tragedy of many lives is not the absence of God's help, but the absence of spiritual preparation. When a week begins without prayer, it often ends with confusion. But when a week, beloved, understand this foundational truth. Every new week is a spiritual container. It is not an empty stretch of time waiting to be filled by chance. It is a vessel already loaded with possibilities, instructions, encounters, and consequences. Time in itself is neutral, but what enters time determines outcomes. Many people experience repeated frustration, not because they are cursed, but because they step into new weeks without spiritual awareness. They assume that days will arrange themselves favorably, forgetting that in the realm of the spirit, nothing responds permanently to assumption. A week carries memory. It carries residue from the past and seeds for the future. What you failed to address last week often attempts to speak again in the new one. Patterns don't break automatically because the calendar changes. That is why wisdom demands that you don't merely cross into a new week. You sanctify it. To sanctify means to separate, to mark for divine use. When a week is not sanctified, it becomes vulnerable to random events and spiritual interference. Spiritual containers are governed by laws. Just as a physical container can be contaminated if left open, a week can be polluted by fear, distraction, and unseen resistance if it is not spiritually secured. The enemy does not need to destroy you outright. All he needs is access. When believers ignore spiritual preparation, they unknowingly grant access through carelessness. Prayer is how access is denied and authority is established. Many people are busy, yet their weeks are unproductive. Activity is not proof of progress. A week can be filled with motion and still be empty of meaning. This happens when effort is disconnected from divine direction. Prayer brings structure to time. It arranges priorities and ensures that energy is invested in what heaven has endorsed. Without prayer, you may succeed at things that don't matter and fail at things that do. A week also carries battles. Though not all battles announce themselves as problems, some appear as opportunities that are mistimed, relationships that look helpful but are harmful, or decisions that seem urgent but are premature. Only spiritual sensitivity can decode these things. When you pray at the beginning of the week, you are not being dramatic, you are being intelligent. You are asking for insight before engagement, clarity before commitment. Helpers are also embedded in weeks. Divine connections favor, and open doors are time-bound. If you mishandle the week, you may miss what was scheduled to meet you. Prayer aligns you with divine timing. It tunes your spirit to recognize when God is moving and when He is silent. Many miracles are missed, not because God did not act, but because people were not positioned to perceive His action. There is also the matter of spiritual atmosphere. Atmospheres influence outcomes. A week entered in anxiety often produces confusion. A week entered in faith produces order. Prayer sets atmosphere. It shifts the environment before you step fully into it. When you pray, you are declaring that peace, wisdom, and divine order will dominate the coming days. Finally, understand that dominion is exercised before manifestation. By the time events unfold, it may already be late to negotiate spiritually. That is why preparation must precede participation. When you begin the week in prayer, you are not reacting to life. You are governing it. You are acknowledging that time is a servant, not a master, and that through divine alignment, your week must cooperate with God's purpose for your life. Beloved, prayer is not a religious activity designed to make us feel spiritual. Prayer is alignment. Alignment means adjusting your position until you are correctly placed under divine authority and within divine order. Many people pray, yet few are aligned because they see prayer as talking to God rather than yielding to Him. True prayer is not measured by how loud your voice is, but by how surrendered your heart becomes. Alignment is necessary because life constantly pulls the human soul out of order. Pressure, ambition, fear, and distraction subtly shift our focus. Without realizing it, people begin to depend more on their intelligence, connections, or past victories than on God. Prayer recalibrates the soul. It recenters your confidence, reminding you that your strength does not come from what you can do, but from who is backing you. When a man is out of alignment, even correct actions produce resistance. This is why some people do the right things but experience unusual difficulty. Heaven responds not just to action but to order. Prayer restores order. It brings your thoughts, desires, and decisions into agreement with God's will. Until agreement is established, authority cannot flow freely. Alignment also deals with motive. You can desire success and still be misaligned. You can pursue growth and still be disconnected from God's intention. Prayer exposes hidden agendas, those subtle ambitions that look harmless but compete with divine purpose. In prayer, God doesn't only instruct you, He corrects you. He trims excess desires and refines your focus so that your pursuit does not become your prison. There is a difference between movement and direction. Many people are moving, but few are correctly directed. Prayer gives direction. It ensures that your energy is not wasted. Without prayer, speed can become dangerous. You may arrive quickly at the wrong destination. Alignment through prayer slows you down just enough to keep you accurate, and accuracy is more powerful than speed in the kingdom. Alignment also brings rest. Struggle is often a sign of misalignment. When things consistently resist you, it is wise to check your position, not just your effort. Prayer brings you into rest because it reconnects you to grace. Grace is the divine empowerment that makes difficult things sustainable. When you are aligned, what once drained you begins to flow more easily, not because the task changed, but because your positioning did. Another critical aspect of alignment is authority. Authority is not self-generated, it is delegated. When you pray, you place yourself under God's authority, and in return, you are entrusted with authority over circumstances. Many believers want authority without submission, but it does not work that way. Prayer is the language of submission. It is how you say, "Not my will, but yours," and that statement unlocks spiritual power. Alignment through prayer also sharpens sensitivity. When you are aligned, you sense when to speak and when to remain silent, when to act and when to wait. This sensitivity protects you from unnecessary battles and helps you engage only where heaven is involved. Prayer does not remove responsibility, it refines response. So when you pray at the beginning of a week, you are not begging God to bless your plans. You are aligning yourself with His. That alignment is what turns ordinary effort into supernatural results and transforms daily life into a walk of authority, peace, and divine cooperation. Beloved, understand this sobering truth: weeks do not unfold randomly, they are programmed. In the realm of the Spirit, nothing is left to chance. Every season, every day, every week carries instructions, waiting for an authorized voice to give them expression. If you do not intentionally define your week spiritually, circumstances will step in and do it for you, and circumstances are terrible masters. Programming speaks of intentionality. It means that outcomes are often decided before events manifest. Many people spend the week reacting, fighting fires, and managing surprises, not realizing that most of those issues were preventable through spiritual definition. When you fail to define your week, you live at the mercy of what appears urgent rather than what is important. There are always voices contending to shape your time. Fear wants to program anxiety. Distraction wants to program waste. Pressure wants to program haste. Even past experiences attempt to dictate future outcomes. Prayer is how you silence competing voices and give God the first and loudest word over your days. Whoever speaks first often gains advantage, and in spiritual matters, precedence matters. Defining your week spiritually means issuing instructions before engaging activities. It is declaring what is permitted and what is forbidden. Not everything that comes to you deserves access to you. Prayer is how you set boundaries in the spirit. You decide what will have room to operate and what must remain outside. Without these boundaries, life becomes invasive, draining your peace and productivity. Many people assume that because they are believers, their weeks will automatically be favorable. But favor is not automatic, it is facilitated. Even divine promises require alignment to manifest. Prayer does not create God's will, but it creates the environment where God's will can thrive. Without that environment, even good intentions struggle to survive. There is also the issue of patterns. Unaddressed patterns repeat. If a week is not defined, it often inherits the failures of the previous one. The same delays, the same distractions, the same emotional cycles attempt to replay. Prayer interrupts continuity. It introduces a spiritual reset. You are declaring that yesterday will not dictate today, and that history will not hijack destiny. Defining your week also empowers your words. When you speak from prayer, your declarations are not empty affirmations, they are authorized decrees. Authority comes from alignment, and alignment comes from communion. That is why some people speak boldly yet see no change. They are speaking without spiritual backing. Prayer ensures that your words carry weight in the unseen realm. There are also unseen resistances attached to progress. Advancement attracts opposition, not because you are wrong, but because you are moving forward. When you define your week through prayer, you engage these resistances ahead of time. Battles are easier to win when they are addressed early. Delay often empowers opposition, but early spiritual engagement disarms it. Defining your week does not mean controlling every detail. It means establishing spiritual government. You are acknowledging that time must submit to divine order. This posture shifts you from survival to dominion. Instead of hoping things go well, you begin to expect cooperation because you have taken responsibility in the spirit. So, when you pray at the beginning of the week, you are not performing a ritual. You are exercising wisdom. You are refusing to live reactively. You are declaring that your life will not be shaped by pressure, randomness, or fear, but by divine intention. In doing so, you position your week to respond, align, and produce according to God's purpose for your life. Beloved, one of the greatest dangers in life is not making wrong decisions intentionally, but making sincere decisions without discernment. Discernment is the ability to perceive accurately beyond appearances, and it is impossible to sustain without prayer. Life does not always present choices as good versus evil. Most times, it presents good versus almost right. Without spiritual insight, you can choose what looks beneficial and still derail destiny. Every week is filled with decisions, some small, some weighty, many appearing ordinary. Yet hidden inside these decisions are doors. A conversation, a meeting, a delay, or even a sudden opportunity can redirect the course of your life. Prayer sharpens your spiritual senses so that you don't just see options, you perceive consequences. Discernment allows you to ask not only, "Is this good?" but "Is this God?" Without prayer, emotions often become decision makers. Pressure can push you into haste, fear can push you into retreat, and excitement can push you into compromise. Prayer quiets emotional noise. It creates stillness within, and in that stillness, clarity emerges. God often speaks most clearly when the soul is quiet enough to listen. Discernment is also about timing. A right action at the wrong time can be as harmful as a wrong action. Many people fail not because they did the wrong thing, but because they did the right thing prematurely or too late. Prayer sensitizes you to divine timing. It teaches you when to move and when to wait. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is wisdom when God has not released permission. There are relationships that look supportive, but are strategically draining. There are opportunities that promise increase, but demand compromise. Discernment exposes hidden costs. Prayer reveals what the eyes cannot see and what logic may ignore. It saves you from paying expensive prices for cheap rewards. Another dimension of discernment is recognizing spiritual atmospheres. Not every environment is meant to shape you. Some environments dilute conviction, weaken focus, and normalize mediocrity. Through prayer, you gain the ability to sense when an atmosphere is hostile to your assignment. This awareness helps you guard your spirit, not just your behavior. Discernment also protects you from overconfidence. Past success can deceive you into thinking you no longer need guidance. But every new level demands fresh instruction. Prayer keeps you dependent, and dependency keeps you accurate. God resists self-sufficiency because it shuts out instruction. Through prayer, humility is preserved, and humility sustains access to wisdom. Importantly, discernment is not suspicion. It is not seeing danger in everything. It is seeing truth in everything. Prayer aligns your perception with God's perspective. It helps you respond wisely instead of reacting emotionally. When discernment is active, you don't panic when things change because you understand that God is still in control. So when you begin your week in prayer, you are not trying to predict problems. You are positioning yourself to interpret life correctly. You are asking for eyes that see beyond the surface and ears that hear beyond noise. That discernment becomes your advantage, enabling you to navigate decisions with peace, accuracy, and confidence, knowing that your steps are ordered and your path is secure. Beloved, many people believe that exhaustion is the price of productivity, but this is not always true. There is a kind of tiredness that sleep cannot cure because it is not physical, it is spiritual. When life is approached only through activity, the soul gradually becomes depleted. Strength is not produced by how much you do. Strength is produced by where you draw from. Without intimacy with God, effort becomes heavy, and even success begins to feel like a burden. Intimacy is the place where strength is renewed. It is not an emotional experience alone. It is a spiritual exchange. In intimacy, you are not proving anything. You are receiving something. Prayer is the doorway into this exchange. When you pray, you step out of self-dependence and into divine supply. This is why two people can carry similar workloads, yet one remains peaceful while the other is constantly overwhelmed. The difference is not capacity, it is connection. Activity without intimacy leads to burnout. You may keep moving, but your inner life grows dry. Decisions become harder, patience becomes shorter, and joy begins to fade. Prayer restores inner vitality. It refuels the heart and sharpens focus. In the presence of God, weariness is replaced with perspective, and what once felt heavy begins to feel manageable. There is also a deception in business. Many assume that being busy means being effective, but business can be a distraction from what truly matters. Prayer slows you down just enough to realign your priorities. It helps you distinguish between what is urgent and what is essential. When intimacy is restored, you begin to work from rest, not for rest. Strength from intimacy also produces consistency. Anyone can push hard for a short time, but only those who draw from God can endure without collapsing. Prayer builds resilience. It stabilizes the emotions and anchors the mind. This kind of strength does not fluctuate with circumstances. It remains steady because its source is constant. Another dimension of strength from intimacy is emotional regulation. Many people are not weak in skill, but unstable in emotion. Pressure exposes the cracks in the soul. Prayer brings healing to these inner places. It aligns emotions with truth. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond wisely. This emotional strength preserves relationships and sustains influence. Intimacy also protects you from pride. When strength comes from activity alone, success can create self-sufficiency. But when strength comes from God, gratitude and humility are preserved. You remember that what you have is not self-generated. This posture keeps your heart teachable and your spirit open to correction. Importantly, intimacy does not remove responsibility, it empowers it. Prayer does not replace work, but it dignifies it. You still plant, you still act, you still engage, but now you do so with divine backing. Effort becomes fruitful rather than frustrating. Even when challenges arise, they do not drain you the way they once did, because you are strengthened from within. So when you begin your week in prayer, you are choosing a superior source of strength. You are refusing to run on empty. You are acknowledging that intimacy is not optional, but essential. From that place of connection, you move into the week with clarity, endurance, and quiet confidence, knowing that the strength sustaining you is greater than the demands before you. Beloved, words are not neutral. Every time you speak, you release something, direction, atmosphere, or consequence. Many people underestimate the power of their words, assuming speech is only a reflection of thoughts. But in the realm of the spirit, words are containers of authority. That is why prayer is essential. Prayer purifies your tongue by first realigning your heart. A misaligned heart produces careless speech. When fear, anger, pride, or frustration dominate the inner life, they inevitably leak into words. You may speak casually, but the impact is rarely casual. Prayer brings your inner world under divine influence. In God's presence, wrong motives are exposed, emotional clutter is cleared, and speech begins to reflect truth rather than impulse. Prayer also teaches restraint. Not everything you know should be said, and not everything you feel should be voiced. Many battles are created not by enemies, but by unguarded tongues. Prayer sensitizes you to timing and tone. It helps you discern when silence is wisdom and when speech is required. Silence at the wrong time can be harmful, but speech at the wrong time can be destructive. Prayer teaches the difference. Words can either cooperate with God or resist Him. You can pray for progress and then speak against it through doubt-filled conversations. This contradiction weakens spiritual momentum. Prayer aligns your language with your petitions. It ensures that what you declare publicly does not cancel what you request privately. When prayer has refined your speech, your words begin to reinforce your faith rather than undermine it. Another dimension of purified speech is authority. Authority in words does not come from volume or confidence. It comes from alignment. When you speak from a prayerful life, your words carry weight because they are backed by heaven. This is why some people shout declarations yet see no change, while others speak quietly and things shift. The difference is not personality, it is spiritual backing. Prayer also heals the tongue from bitterness. Unresolved pain often expresses itself through sarcasm, criticism, and complaint. These words may seem harmless, but they poison relationships and harden the heart. In prayer, God addresses these wounds. He replaces bitterness with understanding and anger with grace. As healing occurs internally, speech becomes edifying rather than destructive. Speech also shapes identity. The way you speak about yourself influences how you see yourself. Without prayer, people often rehearse their limitations, magnify their failures, and label themselves based on past experiences. Prayer rewrites this narrative. In God's presence, truth replaces lies. You begin to speak from divine perspective rather than personal history. This shift in language transforms confidence and direction. Prayer purifies speech in community as well. Many conflicts persist because words are used to defend ego rather than pursue peace. Prayer humbles the heart, making room for wisdom. You begin to speak to restore, not to win. Correction becomes gentle and instruction becomes constructive. This kind of speech builds trust and sustains influence. So when you begin your week in prayer, you are not only seeking divine help, you are submitting your tongue for divine editing. You are allowing God to govern what you say before situations provoke you. That governance protects your destiny. It ensures that your words align with God's purpose, carry His authority, and release life rather than limitation throughout your week. Beloved, God is all-powerful, yet He operates by principles. His sovereignty does not cancel order, it enforces it. One of the greatest misunderstandings in spiritual life is assuming that God will intervene simply because He is able. Ability does not replace permission. Prayer is the legal framework through which divine intervention is authorized in the affairs of men. From the beginning, God designed the earth to respond to authorized human participation. Heaven governs, but earth requires cooperation. When prayer is absent, many things continue unchecked, not because God approves, but because access has not been granted. Prayer is how you invite God's involvement beyond general mercy into specific intervention. It is how you say, step into this matter with authority. There are battles you never see because they are settled before manifestation. Prayer engages these matters at the root. By the time problems appear physically, they often have a spiritual history. Waiting until symptoms appear is often too late to negotiate easily. Prayer moves you from reaction to prevention. It addresses issues before they gain momentum. Divine intervention does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a delay that saves you, a closed door that protects you, or an unusual peace that keeps you steady. These interventions are subtle, but they are intentional. Prayer sharpens your awareness to recognize them. Without prayer, you may misinterpret God's help as inconvenience. Prayer also activates angelic assistance. Heaven has resources assigned to serve God's purposes, but they operate within divine protocol. When prayer is made, assignments are released. Help is dispatched. Protection is enforced. Many people are exposed not because they lack angels, but because they have not engaged the system that authorizes their activity. Another critical aspect of divine intervention is correction. Not all intervention is rescue, some is redirection. Prayer positions your heart to receive correction without resistance. When God intervenes to adjust your path, it is not rejection, it is preservation. Without prayer, correction often feels like opposition. With prayer, it is recognized as love. Intervention also rearranges outcomes. Situations that seemed fixed suddenly shift. Favor appears where there was resistance. Wisdom replaces confusion. These changes are not coincidences, they are responses to engagement. Prayer does not force God's hand, but it aligns your situation with His will, creating room for His power to manifest. Importantly, prayer sustains intervention. It is possible to receive help and then lose ground through neglect. Consistent prayer maintains spiritual coverage. It keeps doors guarded and pathways clear. Intervention without maintenance invites relapse. That is why prayer must be a lifestyle, not an emergency measure. So when you begin your week in prayer, you are doing more than seeking comfort. You are activating a system of divine involvement. You are giving heaven legal access to interfere with earthly matters on your behalf. That access results in protection, guidance, correction, and victory, often without noise, but always with precision. Through prayer, your week is not left to chance. It is overseen by divine order and sustained by heavenly help.